On this episode of the Neutral Wisdom podcast, Satanic Warlock Robert Shirley discusses friendships and relationships and is joined by his best friend of almost 40 years, Beaker S. You are listening to the Neutral Wisdom podcast, a podcast dedicated to passing on knowledge and experience from a satanic perspective, hosted by Satanic Warlock Robert Shirley.
Greetings and welcome to the Neutral Wisdom Podcast. I'm your host, Satanic Warlock Robert Shirley, and today we're going to be discussing friendships and relationships. I'll be joined later by my best friend of almost 40 years. We met in 1987 or 1988, I don't really remember at this point, Beaker S. Beaker and I go way back. However, it was during a discussion with one of the newer members of the Hellfire Brotherhood that I really started to think about the whole dynamic concepts of friendships and relationships, especially amongst men. This isn't to say that I don't have friendships with females. Actually, I think I have more female friends than male ones. This is mostly due to the fact that in my geographic area, a majority of the men are manly men who only like to talk about manly men things. Since I don't watch sports, drink domestic beer, drive a pickup truck, fix things with engines, work with my hands, or get shit under my fingernails, apparently I am barely qualified to hold what could be considered a man card. At least where I live. If you have the fortune, or misfortune, to know me personally, you'll know that I'm a dedicated misanthrope. Not in the aspect of wanting to dissociate with society, more in the fact that I'm irritated by the overall lack of courtesy and common sense in the majority of the herd these days. I think that most self-identified Satanists fall into this category as well. This is exactly why we are the elite. We do exhibit courtesy and common sense, as well as charm, charisma, logic, and everything else which seems to escape the herd. And in my mind, this puts us above the rabble. In fact, were I to quote a Bible verse and apply it to Satanists, which I love to do since we are our own gods and it really pisses off the Christians, but that's another show, I would use 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 16. Come out from among them and be separate. I've also heard this stated as, walk among them, but be not of them. It seems that quite a few people share the same feelings and motivations I do when it comes to making friends. I'm just dumb enough to have written it down, more for my own reference than any guidance. I suppose this could be considered an idiot's guide to Robert Shirley if I were being honest. The interesting thing is, if I'm comfortable enough with someone to divulge this information in conversation, most often I find that the other person shares very similar views. So how do we make and keep friends? What happened way back in caveman days where Ugg looked across the cave at Ig and thought to himself, wow, that looks like the kind of guy I would totally hunt saber-toothed tigers with. I think I'll move closer to him and grunt up a conversation. Never mind that. How does someone like me keep the same best friend for close to 40 years? Because let's be honest here, I can be a bit of a dick, like most of the time. What have I got that makes me a friend worth keeping, especially for that long? Or does Beaker S just have very low standards? I'm really looking forward to the interview part of this show, so I'll share the essay I wrote for this subject. This essay is titled, The Honeymoon Period, or Why I Suck at Having Friends. I recently had a very interesting conversation with a new brother in the Hellfire Brotherhood. As it turns out, we're both pretty much the same character, and I found it interesting that we shared some of the same traits. Our conversation set a basis for a long-lasting friendship and brotherhood and all of the benefits that come with that. But our conversation got me thinking about the dynamics of relationships people have in general. More specifically, how Satanists and warlocks interact in friendships and groups. And it brought my thoughts to myself and how I interact with friends and in groups. Human beings are social creatures with a need for interpersonal relationships and positive social bonds. We seek to belong to something, anything, to give us an identity and a sense of purpose, to feel accepted and loved. I suppose that's true, for the herd at least. As a Satanist and a warlock, I actually have no desire to belong to anything. In fact, if I do join any group, I do so only if it is self-fulfilling for me. I'm seeking to further my own ambitions and to prove to myself that I have what it takes to not only succeed, but to excel. I have very high standards for myself, and once I meet those standards, I often find that it is the group which starts to fall short. And that is why I suck at having friends. Don't get me wrong, I try. However, I always go through the same cycle no matter where, when, or with whom I try to establish a relationship. Granted, most of the friends I do have, I've had for years. I met Beaker in 1987 or 88, but they're few and far between. Some of my friends are of the we don't need to talk for long periods of time, but so what variety. But new people, that's a tougher row to hoe, as they say. For me, this is not the same process as lesser magic. Lesser magic is a performance of sorts, where you ascertain what type of actions and behavior must be put out to achieve your desired results. You're not necessarily attached to the outcome. If it works, great. If it fails, well, okay then. Usually, my cycle of behavior goes along the following lines. There's no timeline for this per se. It all depends on the relationship and the level of involvement. In phase one, getting to know you. When we first meet, I don't say much. I listen, observe, and listen some more. I need to get a feel for you to see what makes you tick. Sooner or later, you'll do or say something that tells me all I need to know. First impressions are important for you. Do I care what you think of me at first meeting? Not really. You see what I want you to see. Over time, or after a few visits, I loosen up a little if I'm comfortable. Depending on the type of relationship we'll have, I'll ask specific questions, but without being too specific. Still listening and observing. I might participate in a few group events, be socially interactive, but still reserved. In phase two, I'm all in, or as I call it, the honeymoon phase. All's good in the hood. We hang out, go to events, go to each other's homes. Friends for sure. I might even help you move. No, wait, scratch that. I'm in my 50s. I don't do moves for pizza and beer anymore. We get to know each other's spouses and do couple things. A good relationship builds. Mostly at this point, I'm pretty impressed that anyone can put up with me. Once I'm all in, I don't hold back. You get the real me. This could be good or bad, depending on your perspective. But hey, we're friends, right? Phase three, the milk sours. And then it's too much. Maybe we see too much of each other. Maybe there are unrealistic expectations on either side. Then little things, little idiosyncrasies which I overlooked in the all in phase become glaringly apparent. I get irritated, become passive aggressive, stop hanging out so much, don't make as many calls or send as many texts. Quite simply, I lose interest. Most of the time, I'm hoping people will just go away. Sometimes they do, most times they don't. If pressure builds to the breaking point, I will say what is really on my mind. Then that's pretty much it. Ties cut, all done. Thanks for coming out. Phase four, afterward. How we interact if we run into each other down the road totally depends on the person and the situation. I'm willing to let bygones be bygones. There's no reason we can't breathe the same air in the same place. Does this happen in all the cases? Of course not. I value people in relationships where both parties understand there can be too much of a good thing. People who know when it's time to arrive, as well as take the appropriate time to make a graceful exit. People who understand the give and take of any relationship. I just don't find those people very often, and if I do, they're like gold. I don't care to have a large circle of friends. It creates too much drama. Better to have a few good friends who have your back than a plethora of acquaintances you can't trust. So, what makes me so special? Absolutely nothing. I have plenty of unlikable qualities, I'm sure. I like me just fine, so I'm not really concerned about that. If a person decides they don't like me anymore, well, I most likely have never become attached enough to miss them when they go. I suppose my cycle's simply part of a larger defense mechanism ingrained in me from childhood. Rather than allow myself to become disappointed, as I was continually let down by my family my whole life, I simply harden my heart when I feel disappointed. This results in the cutoff part of the relationship. Sounds like an unresolved issue for me to deal with in my shadow work. I guess I'll just add that one to the pile. But all of these are my issues. What about you? Do you see yourself in any of this? Or do you have a different way of dealing with friends and relationships in your life? Do you put up with a lot from people? Do you ignore the bad and focus on the good? Do you have a large circle of acquaintances or an exclusive friend group? Do you cut people off without so much as a second thought? If you've heard this essay and think, well, that guy's an asshole, I would never want to be friends with him, you're probably right. But why would you be thinking that? Because I am an asshole? Or because you recognize things you yourself have done in friendships and relationships? Or maybe this will serve as a good guide for you on what not to do. As for me, if I ever need the phone a friend option on a TV game show, I am so fucked. Time for a quick break. When we come back, we welcome Beaker S to discuss our 40-year friendship and why he puts up with me.
You are listening to the Neutral Wisdom Podcast. For questions, comments, or suggestions, email us at information.neutralwisdom.ca. Devilish Gentleman Enterprises is pleased to announce the release of Neutral Wisdom, Contemplations of a Satanic Warlock. This book, the first publication by author Robert Shirley, provides a detailed exploration of the philosophy, principles, and practices of Satanism from the perspective of a satanic warlock. The author, a member of the Church of Satan and a graduate of the Warlock Academy, outlines his journey to embracing Satanism and offers practical advice on how others can apply these teachings to their own lives. The book also includes personal anecdotes and reflections on the author's experiences with Satanism and the warlock self, aiming to inspire others to explore and embrace their true selves through the lens of satanic philosophy. Overall, it serves as both a guide and a personal manifesto for those interested in the satanic path. Look for this release on Amazon and Kindle. Visit neutralwisdom.ca for more information. Ever forward.
And welcome back to the Neutral Wisdom Podcast. I have a really special guest on today who will have a lot of great insight into this topic. I've known this guy for close to 40 years. We met in all places, the Sea Cadets, way back in 1987, and have had a really strong friendship ever since. This man is a heavy equipment operator, a truck driver, a town council member for his hometown, jack of all trades, a real manly man. I could go on, but we don't have time for all of his accomplishments. Beaker S, welcome to the podcast. Just another endeavor of mine you supported over the years, huh? We've been doing this dance for a long time, haven't we?
Yeah, longer than my memory usually lasts.
These days and at our advanced stage, I'm not surprised. If you can remember anything else other than what I said about you in my intro, tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your background? What do you do? Things like that. And since you're one of the guests I've had that's not a Satanist, I would love to hear your opinion on the religion, the people in the religion, anything that's on your mind.
Well, I'm not, as you said, I'm not a religious type of a person. Growing up, I was raised Christian, did the Christian stuff just because I wanted to drink the wine. Gave up
Makes
on
sense.
that shortly after. And for the most part, I've never really followed any religion. I looked into Satanism a long time ago. Never joined up into the church or anything, but my personal views follow Satanism quite well. And that's just kind of always how I've lived my life. I live it for me and my happiness and those around me that I care about.
Okay, so did you have any kind of reaction when I told you that I had joined the Church of Satan, or was this just another thing in the long line of different things I've done over the years?
No, I didn't have a reaction. And it was kind of a thing that you just do. But I mean, I've always been one of your biggest supporters, right? So you told me this is the road you're following. Well, great. I will try to stand behind you, support you to whatever I can, just like every other thing you've done. I mean, I ran around behind you in a graveyard chasing a stick.
Let's not go any further into that. It's probably a good idea. Um, wow.
Yeah,
So
taking it back.
yeah, a little too far. You said you looked into this quite a few years ago. So this would have been when you were a crazy teenager, I guess. But I don't really remember you ever being into all the dark stuff. Like, what drew you to checking it out back when you did?
It was mainly just figuring out life. I always enjoyed reading. I've looked into the Quran, different types of Bibles and religious studies, and Nothing ever got super in depth because I never found anything I wanted to throw myself into or seriously follow. But the beliefs, I guess, for lack of a better term, with Satanism, I mean, it just speaks about how to live your life, right? In a way to make yourself happy. Don't worry about making the sheep happy. Live your life for you. At the end of the day, you're the only one whose happiness you're in control of. And if you want to, I don't know, let's say in your case, you want to smoke a cigar, smoke a cigar. In my case, if you want to jump in the ocean and see some fish or ride stupid fast on a motorcycle, do it, right? It what is put a smile on each of our faces at the end of the day.
You have never given a ripe old shit what anybody thought about you from the time that we met up until today. Like, I remember the chick magnet, right? Who could remember the station wagon with one seat in it? Or that Toyota Tercel with the cracked windshield, or I mean, I could go on. Like, I've just never known you to give a shit what anybody thought. And I think a lot of people tend to have that attitude, or they want to have that attitude. But what's really funny is when we say, well, you know what, you're an awful lot like me, or you're an awful lot like a Satanist, they kind of get a little bit backed up by that because it's, I guess, that Catholic guilt or that religious guilt or whatever, but that never seemed to be an issue for you.
Well, no, and everybody is going to see in everybody around them what they choose to see, right? So if you're a Christian and you want to see that I'm living my life in a way that lines up with your Christian beliefs, so be it, right? You're going to see yourself in me, and you're going to take out of me what you want to see. Whether you're a Christian, a Catholic, a Protestant, a Satanist, whatever your background and your belief system is, if you can see in me whatever you want to see, but it's not going to reflect on me and make me any different than I want to be.
To each their own, and as we say, responsibility to the responsible, right? All right, well, time to open the vault, I guess, man. In your memory, how did we meet and become friends? And more importantly, why are we still friends after almost 40 years?
Well, okay, so 1988, I joined Sea Cadets because my brother needed a ride and I had the car. And you approached me in a classroom and introduced yourself, and you had heard that I had passed the higher basic training for reserves, and we just started talking. I've been thinking about this a lot. I don't know how we became friends ever. I don't know if I invited you to come hang out with me one day, if you invited me to come hang out with you one day. Just all of a sudden, we were kind of like stuck together, hanging out regularly. We just matched. Like we clicked on a mental and a fun. We enjoyed doing these stupid things that each of us as teenagers were doing. I mean, I wanted to jump in my car and hey, let's go to Kenora and get a sandwich, like a 2.5 hour drive, and you're like, sure, let's go. Or
What
you're
else
like,
did
hey,
we
let's
have
go hang
doing?
out in the basement and play guitars. Okay, I'll go hang out in the basement and watch you play a guitar.
And so what's interesting is that I don't really remember that either, which is why I brought up the question. And it's almost like, I guess when it's meant to happen, it happens, right? So why do you think people become friends then? Like, what is it about another person like Ugg and Egg, from the top of the show? You see a guy, you go, hey, I want to go ride bikes with that guy. Like you and me, for example, we didn't have a whole lot in common, really, but we can still get together and hang out and enjoy each other's company. So why do you think that is?
See, and you're just asking the easy questions now, right? I mean, there's so many different things that it can be, though, right? Your personality, your sense of humor. Are you making up for things that you feel you're missing in your life that you see in somebody else's life? And hey, maybe if I hang around with this person, their accomplishments or their abilities will maybe rub off on me. I can learn something from them, or I can teach them something that I know, right? Because our friendship has been both sides of the coin. I have had to want to hang around with you about as much as you wanted to hang around with me, or there never will be a friendship if, just like every other relationship, right? To succeed, both parties have to be interested in it.
It's a two-way
And
dance. There's give and take on both sides. There has to be.
I think on that, like, you are more musical than I am. I'm more mechanical, I think, than you are,
I'm
right?
really not
So,
meant to work with my hands whatsoever. No.
okay, Mr. Guitarist.
It's different application of skills, right? So
Yeah,
it's we just get together, we hang out, and we have stuff to talk about. Whether, I mean, the thing that we have in common is, of course, we're both Gen Xers. We're becoming those bitter old guys, right? And we don't understand anything our kids are doing or saying,
yeah.
and we're seeing a lot of repeated behavior. They're doing the same stupid shit now that we used to do when they were their age, minus sticking swords in your mother's roof. That hasn't happened here, and nor did we get a chance to videotape it. But I think that's it. It persists and it lasts because I think you have the good times, and then you have the shitty times too. I mean, okay, admittedly, I'm a dick most of the time. I never
Luckily,
found.
I equalize or I offset that, and I'm the Puritan.
Well, I was gonna say I've never really known you to be too much of a dick, other than in your personality and the way you carry yourself.
Oh, thanks.
But in terms of saying, "Hey, I want to go ride bikes with that guy," or "I want to hang out with that guy," I wonder what the attraction is there. Is just for two people to just click and come together and just hang around.
And on that, I think like that just had to be our personalities are similar, our sense of humors are similar, right? And
Mm-hmm.
in the things that you failed at, we were both able to laugh at you. And the things that I failed at, we were both able to laugh at me, right? And neither one of us took offense to the other one laughing along at us because we were doing it out of love and respect for each other.
I mean, and I laugh because you say we're very similar in terms of personality and sense of humor. Maybe that's why my mother couldn't stand you.
She always blamed my shoes, but maybe you're right.
No, your shoes were worthy of blame no matter what.
Hey, I grew up in farm country.
That you did. So, what do you figure contributes to a long lasting friendship like this one over 40 years? And I'm going to leave that question short because I think there's a few rabbit holes we can open up there. So, for example, there was a time period where you and I didn't talk for a number of years, yet you called and on one of the rare occasions I answered the phone, it was never, "Hey, you prick, where you been? You screwed me over, I haven't heard from you." It's like, "Hey, how's it going?"
Well, but even that was your fault because you had tracked me down. I had no idea what your phone number was, and luckily you had a memory that you remembered my parents' phone number.
Yeah, that's true.
So, it's your fault.
Well, that was around the whole Debbie incident.
Good memories.
Well, not really so much for me. She died.
Yeah,
I think finally passed away. Didn't she have like 37 cats in her house or something?
yeah, yeah. That her obituary said she would be greatly missed by her cats, I believe.
I'm not surprised. Well, she had that loony friend who was in the cult too, so I don't know whatever happened to her.
That's not the one that I was trying to date. I
Oh,
was trying to date the fun one.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, cross lines and cross communications, but I think that a lasting friendship is the kind where you don't have to talk every day.
That's one of the things, right? We can not talk for a week, a month, 3 months, and we get together or we just hit each other up on the phone and we're talking like we never missed a beat, like we just saw each other yesterday or something, right? We've got that comfort and familiarity between us
Mhm.
that carries on over time.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just kind of accepting what the other person does, regardless. I mean, there's, a lot of things that people will do that their friends don't agree with, but does it really matter in the big picture?
Yeah, and I don't think it really does, right?
Mm.
As long as I am happy with what you're doing, you're happy with what I'm doing. Well, then who cares what everybody else is doing, right?
Yeah.
It shouldn't be affecting our friendship unless, I mean, family members. Okay, if I've done something that has annoyed your wife or your child, yeah, maybe that affects our friendship somewhat, right?
So that's a
But
really good point because, okay, so that I've had relationships in the past with members of our motorcycle organization where I had a falling out with the wife, and the husband was so attached to the wife that was it. our friendship was over. So I don't know if I could say that if you did something to piss off Ms. Wiz, or if you just decided one day that you didn't like Ms. Wiz anymore, I don't know. I can't honestly say how I would take that, because you and me are different than myself and Ms. Wiz, right? Fortunately, the three of us get along together, but I've seen a lot of situations where, people say, well, I like that guy, but I can't stand his wife, kind of thing. You know?
Well, and I don't think anybody would ever say that about Ms. Wiz. I mean,
I
she
know,
is so
I know,
likable.
I know. It's the one
And
quality
and
she
she
has that
brings
irritates me.
and she brings me coffee. Like, what's
I
not to
know,
like?
I know, I know. But have you ever run into that where you've had a friend and you just couldn't stand his significant other, or you've or they couldn't stand your significant other?
Believe so, yes. For sure
Mhm.
that I have stopped talking to people because I didn't like the partner that they ended up joining up with. I don't know if I have lost friends because of people that I have gotten with. I don't have a lot of friends that I hang around with normally, so I don't think I've lost anybody over it because I've kept my circle small, right? It's if you're an acquaintance, okay, you stay in your box over there. I pull you out when I need you, right?
Mhm,
Other
mhm.
than that, I've only got a couple of good friends, you and one other person, and then there's a third that's almost in there.
Passing the initiation, are they?
Yeah, yeah, they're almost through, but not quite.
Did you lose anybody because of your last relationship, or was your circle small enough at the time that we all kind of knew what the deal was and what was going on there?
Don't think I lost anybody. I didn't for sure lose any friends that came around because of her,
Hmm.
and I didn't lose any that I know of because of her. Like nobody disappeared while we were together that turned up again after when we were done.
Well, interestingly enough, knowing you the way I do, I know it takes a lot for you to dislike somebody, which could explain a lot as far as I'm concerned, I guess. But what would a person have to do to really piss you off to the point where you would say, "That's it, we're done"?
I've matured. I I've learned a long time ago to dislike people a lot easier and a lot quicker.
Really? Okay, that's
Yep.
new to me. I did not know that, because you're just a happy-go-lucky type of guy before. So what's
I still
changed?
kind
And
of am. I still
okay,
am, but it's nowadays if you annoy me, I'm a public figurehead, I guess. I work for my town. So I still have to put up with the people, but I don't have to like you. I don't have to pretend I like you, and I don't have to go out of my way to help you. If you do something that annoys me, I'm done with you. If my office tells me I have to deal with you, I will get it over quick like ripping off a band-aid. Won't say a word and I'll just get it done with. One of the biggest things I find that really annoys me and turns me off of people nowadays, you can have your opinions and you can like me or you can dislike me. Does not affect me in the least one way or the other. But what annoys me probably the most is people talking about me behind my back, not being brazen enough, bold enough to say it to my face. I mean, I don't care. Call me an asshole. Tell me you don't like me. Tell me you don't like my beliefs, my politics, my cooking, whatever. Tell it to my face. I'll respect you for it. I probably still won't like you, but I'll have some respect. If I hear it through the gossip mill around town or at work or in the office, right? I have absolutely no use for you anymore. I don't care. You're stuck on the side of the road. I'm not pulling you out. Offer me $100. I'll wave and just drive right on by and laugh.
well, that's for people you don't like. But let's say I came to you one day for real and said, Beaker, man, you did some really stupid shit there, and I'm calling you out on it. How would you take that? Would you prefer honesty and straightforwardness from your friends, or would you prefer me to pussyfoot around the issue because that friend we had from the motorcycle organization, he didn't like that. And some people can take it and some people can't. And I just, you know what? It's an interesting question because I've known you for so long, but I've never said to you, "Hey, Beaker, you're a dick." You know what I mean?
Well, okay, he didn't like what? Were you direct or were you pussyfooting around?
No, I was direct. A lot of people don't like directness. And I'm just wondering if you think that being direct like that, first of all, do you respect that or do you not like it? And do you think that that's an important element to have in a friendship is the ability to be honest and direct with each other?
No, I much prefer the direct. If I have done something that irritated you, hurt you, pissed you off, tell me straight up, be blunt, and hey, you know what? I am sorry. I did not mean it the way that you took it, or I meant it the way you took it because I'm responding because I thought you were being an asshole to me when you did blah, blah, blah. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But it puts the conversation right there, right now. You know what was bugging me, or I know what was bugging you, and we can work through it, work around it, get over it, or get beyond it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you start playing games and I'm only hinting that, oh, you know what, you maybe irritated me, but let's go out for a sandwich and we'll pretend that everything is okay. And when I get home, I'm going to stew about it for the next 3 weeks. And the next time you phone me, maybe I'm not going to answer because I'm still mad at you. Get it all out right now, rip off the band aid, and what will be, will be. If the friendship were to end, which, as you alluded to, it kind of did once before, well, we got past it once we talked.
Mm-hmm.
But there is proof right there. We didn't talk, feelings got hurt, and it accomplished nothing but cost us a few years of friendship.
It's funny because I find a lot of people do what I did to you. And a lot of people tend to take the passive aggressive approach, or they, you always see this horseshit on social media about, oh, I'm just going to cut the dross out of my life. If you're negative, you're toxic, and I don't want to have anything to do with you. And, speaking for myself, I think a lot of that was just shuffling off the responsibility, right? And of course, my parents were champions at that. I don't have any problem. It's everybody else that has a problem. So I'm not going to talk to you because you're an asshole and I deserve better, which is really a backwards way of looking at it.
Well, maybe you're looking at something through a jaded viewpoint that is affecting your thought process, that venting to an outside party, and maybe that outside party gives you a different viewpoint of, well, maybe they came at you from this direction and they give you something different to think about, much like texting back and forth. I hate
Yeah.
text messages
Yeah.
because if you're in a bad mood, you're going to read my text message to you like I was in a bad mood. And maybe I was happy as could be, and you read it in the wrong mindset, the wrong way. Well, the same thing can happen with a conversation, but voice to voice, right? You can pick up so much more in the tone of a person's voice. Hey, they're sounding angry, or nope, they're laughing. They're definitely enjoying this conversation.
Well, we're talking almost about the Moravian model from 1971 of communication, where words are such a very, very small part of it. The tone of voice and the body language, those are the most important things. But I think the takeaway from this is to keep a friendship going is communication, much like it is with any relationship. You've got to be able to talk to each other.
Exactly. And then there's the give and take of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we went to Vegas, you didn't want to shoot. I wanted to shoot. So we went to a rifle range. You ended up enjoying yourself. You almost have your hearing back. So, I mean, win-win.
That stupid 50 cal almost blew the shorts right off me. But yeah, it was an interesting experience. But that was it. It's like, why would I go there and then stop you from doing something you wanted to do? You'd never been there before. It was like my third time. So let's do it all. Like, that's the way that it should be.
Well, exactly.
Friendships.
And
Yeah.
I never really cared about seeing Vegas from 250 feet up in the air or whatever the top of that Ferris wheel was. But, right, give and take. And then, well, hey, who doesn't want a zip line like Superman?
I have yet to find anybody that will go in the high roller with me and have a good time. So, just a quick message out there. If you ever want to meet up in Vegas and go on the high roller with Robert Shirley, please let me know, because both of the people that I've gone on the high roller with, Beaker S and Ms. Wiz, both never enjoyed it. Although
Oh, no.
Beaker S wasn't terrified, like Ms. Wiz was, but Beaker S was a little worried about the 400-pound mama that was in that car.
And I didn't have a problem going on it. I'm not afraid of heights or anything. It just, that wasn't one of the things I was aiming for in
Yeah.
Vegas. I wasn't worried about getting on it. We walked down there. You wanted to go on it. Well, let's go. Right.
It's an experience, right?
I made you ride in the back of a military Humvee with me to go to a shooting range. Why won't I sit on a great big go round with you?
Well, we're kind of walking down memory lane here, so I gotta ask, and I sent you this question. Give me some good memories, man. Like I say, the time we lit the island on fire, that was a hoot. Of course, we didn't find out about it till the next day, or enjoying a crispy crunch today. I've never
Yeah.
quite let that go because I still see stupid signs like that, and it cracks me up.
Well, there are so many memories that I think about actually quite often. I was referencing since you brought up the Toyota Tercel, I actually referenced that today to my underling at work, that we were fixing his little Nissan, and I was telling him about the heater or lack thereof in the Toyota Tercel and us playing connect the dots with all the stone chips. I mean, the Toyota Tercel had lots of decent memories. You learned how to drive the wrong way on a one-way street in it.
Was stick, and still that's better than most millennials and Gen Zs could do today. But as a
Yeah.
public service announcement, we should mention that if your defrost doesn't work in your car, that a gold Zippo lighter may not be the most appropriate way to defrost your windshield.
But it worked.
Well, till the window cracked in half, it did. Or perhaps instead of a brake job, maybe not hauling off on the emergency brake every time you needed to stop.
Mm-hmm.
I love that car.
I still wish I had it.
You take it down the side of a mountain in BC or something.
Yeah, but it came back from that. But yeah,
I
it went
remember.
off-roading on a mountain in, just outside of Golden somewhere, Logan Lake. And yeah, I love that little car.
Well, for reference, this guy just out of nowhere one day just left. And then I think you called me from somewhere halfway between here and British Columbia, and you said, I'm moving to BC. I'm like, well, okay, see ya. And then what? What did you come back? Like 6 months, a year later, you just
Well, yeah,
phoned
and
me at like three
I
o'clock in the
phoned you while I
morning.
was halfway back, and I'm like, hey, want to get together for a coffee?
Exactly. We ended up at the country kitchen at like 6 a.m. He said, what are you doing here? You said, oh, I got bored. I decided to come home. Did you tell
Exactly.
anybody?
Came for a coffee.
Yeah, came for coffee. Exactly.
Oh, there's so many memories. I mean, you like to mock me over my sportsman man underwear, and you will never live down Split and Fitty.
Oh my goodness, we got the tattoos to prove it, don't we? I mean, some
Exactly.
memories you immortalize in ink. I'm not ready to immortalize your sportsman man underwear from our very failed bathroom reno in a wartime house. That was the worst bathroom reno I think we've ever done.
I have a lot of memories of us growing up. I don't remember there really being any bad ones. I mean, you put up with, I guess, the best of me and the worst of me. I wonder too why we're still friends.
Mhm.
Like, why do you keep answering the phone when I phone you? Why do you keep phoning me? Right? It's friendship is a two-way street that I could ask you the exact same questions, right? Why are we still friends? What are your memories that have kept me in your heart and mind all of these years? Some of them we're going to share. There's other ones that I have done absolutely stupid things or whatever, or hilarious things that stand out in your mind, just like you've done some stupid or hilarious things that have really stood out in my mind. We've shared a lot of common stuff like building things around the house, dealing with our children.
Well, you know what? You are one of the very few that I will call my brother. I do not like that word, as you know, because of our history with it. But if I had to answer that question, if you're flipping the tables on me, I would say the same thing to you that I have always said to my daughter is that Uncle Beaker will always have your back. And I've known for 40 years that whatever I need, anytime, anywhere, you will drop whatever you're doing and come halfway across the country just to be there. And that's huge. That's respect. That's trust. That's loyalty. That's honesty. That's all of that stuff. right? If I had said to my daughter, she said, well, I might buy a standard. I said, there's only one man I would trust to teach you to drive a stick, and that's your Uncle Beaker, because no one else will do it properly. I said, he almost taught me to drive a stick. Almost.
Almost. One of these days you'll get there.
Oh, I hope so. I just got to keep working on it. But that's the key. You build that, you earn it. Like any relationship, I think that's earned, and you have to work at it. And yeah, you're going to do stupid things. I'm going to do stupid things. Do we have the ability to look past that? In a real friendship, I think so. In friendships that aren't as serious, or friendships that are built on something else, I don't think that that's possible.
Well, exactly. And I always look forward to the stories from you where, like, I phone you up and you're like, hey, I drove by your house the other day. I'm like, oh, I could have put some coffee on. Oh, well, I'm home now.
Well, one thing I should mention is that I live about 5 hours away from Beaker on the highway. So when I drive past his house, I'm usually on my way to a work site, and
Yeah.
I always promise
Doing
to
200
stop in.
miles an hour
Well, all
in a snowstorm.
compensable time. Exactly. Well, and that's the other thing. That's the other thing about a long-lasting friendship is you get to know somebody, you get to trust them. Because I will never forget that call that I made to you on the phone during that blizzard. And you said, where are you? I said, I'm just outside of so and so town. And you said, get off the road. And I'm like, what do you mean? He says, like, you said, I've been driving for 30 years and I'm not out there in this. You have no idea what you're doing. Get off the road. And I think I got like the last hotel room in that little town that night because I came in just in time. But I'm not so stubborn that I'm not going to listen and respect the opinion of somebody that's been doing this for this long. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And once the sun goes down, you're in trouble.
Yeah. Well, at any time in a blizzard on the highway when everything's like a skating rink, you don't necessarily want to be following the semi in front of you, do you? Because if he hits the ditch, so do you. But we're going off topic a little bit. I'm having a great time having you here. We're going to wrap up here shortly, but you know what? I think it's important that we kind of go over anything else you want to talk about today's discussion, what you think contributes to a friendship, things to look out for. Are there any red flags to you? Any advice that you might have, any tips, go ahead and let her fly.
For friendships, I think, well, there's some things you can't get past. Little things you can get over. I think the biggest things are look for compatibility, loyalty. Do they have your back? Will they be there for you if you need them? And after that, it's just how well do you get along? And really, how much do you want the friendship to work? Because, like I alluded to earlier, every relationship is a two-sided thing. If one party doesn't try just as hard as the other, it's going to end before it even began. Open yourself up to it. That's about all I can say. If you don't allow the opportunity to happen, it can't happen. Don't leave yourself open to being mistreated. And other than that, enjoy your life. It's the only one you've got. Might as well surround yourself with people that you can really get along with.
Our founder, Anton LaVey, says, we give love to people who deserve it instead of wasting it on ingrates. And I think that is really kind of summing up most of what you said. Surround yourself with people that you would willingly give your time to. Value those people and cherish those people. So, I mean, that's fantastic advice. I can't thank you enough for doing this. I know it was kind of weird.
Thanks for inviting me.
Well, anytime. I mean, it was kind of weird, doing it in a formal format kind of thing without going off down the many roads that we tend to. If the opportunity ever comes up again for us to have you back on here, I really hope you'll consider it. So I plan on keeping in touch as I've always done. 40 years in and 40 more to go, I guess, huh?
Yeah, hopefully. We're
Right.
getting up there, though. We might only have another 20 left.
I know. Just watch it or I'll hit you with my cane.
You got to get in line.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, my brother. We shall talk to you again.
And thank you very much for the invite. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Cheers. And that about wraps it up for this episode of the Neutral Wisdom Podcast. I'd like to thank all of you for listening and a huge thank you to Beaker S for being here today. Like we said, we're almost 40 years and counting, and I sure hope there's 40 more in us yet. Please drop a like or comment down below. For questions or comments, you can email me directly at information@neutralwisdom.ca. You can listen to us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. A like and subscribe go a long way in getting this podcast out there. Check me out on Facebook under Robert Shirley, and check out Instagram at neutral_wisdom. And be sure to visit the website at neutralwisdom.ca. Until next time, ever forward.
You have been listening to the Neutral Wisdom Podcast. For more information, email us at information.neutralwisdom.ca, Facebook under Robert Shirley, or Instagram at neutral_wisdom. Also check out our website at neutralwisdom.ca. Program copyrighted 2025. Devilish Gentleman Enterprises.